Good afternoon, Venice family. This is Abel Mejia again. Just wanted to take a quick couple minutes of your day to talk a little bit of how this Envision series has definitely been opening my heart and my mind to inquire more of the Lord in this season. Specifically, why do I do the things that I do? For those that don't know, you may know that I can be pretty active and involved in many ministries at Venice Church. And with that comes a question of why do I keep doing it? And to simply say I do it simply because I do it is not a fair answer to either myself or even my relationship with the Lord. And one verse that oftentimes comes up in my reflection is a verse in my favorite book, which is the book of Isaiah. And it's when the Lord is inquiring of Isaiah, shortly after Isaiah has realized the depth of his sin and his humanness. When the Lord is inquiring who will go in his place, Isaiah comes before and says, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And it's that longing heart, that posture of surrender, but also availability before the Lord. However, I think that only summarizes a part of that vision. As one thing that I tend to see and realize is that a vision of doing things simply for the Lord, it does not suffice enough on its own. And what the Lord has really been pressing is not to be simply busy or to simply be action oriented and to fill up your schedule with various other things. But more importantly, it is to build your life upon the promises and the Word of God. It is essentially to shape my vision around His vision, and such is made known in His Word, in His Scriptures, and His promises. This past week, there was a wonderful and miraculous experience where my family had been delivered from a mortal circumstance. And in the mercy of God, I couldn't help but feel so overwhelmed by His goodness and His grace. But I inquired of the Lord. I asked Him for the reason why He was so merciful and good. And in that reason, when in my humanness, I had to simply ask the reality of even when they don't quote unquote deserve it or seem to respond in such a way, despite the fact that the Lord loved them relentlessly. And that's what was made known to me. And it was such a humbling response that in my questioning, the Lord responded the words of Romans 9 in such a new and beautiful light, where He simply said, "I will save whom I will save." And it was such a beautiful promise and declaration of God's sovereignty in the everyday circumstances that it really brought me to a place of humility to stop and reflect and realize that it's never been about my timeline, but rather in God's timeline, I do find great peace. More specifically, it's this entire season has been God bringing me to submit to His timeline, but not like one who is being forced into it, but to see the beauty and the joy and the miraculous blessing and peace that comes about from it. And I've been recognizing that more and more as I've been carrying on, simply not just in ministry, but in my relationship and intimacy with God. That my time spent with the Lord is not simply a task that needs to be checked off because I'm more concerned about my timeline, but rather it is God opening my eyes to bear witness to His vision for my life, and that His timeline is grander. And if there was a way to put words into what He is doing in this time, it is to build my life upon the foundation of His Word and His promises, to build a vision that is built upon His promises. And it's streamlining the way I perceive my reality. And while many of this can seem very, very much challenging to process, I believe the words in the book of Isaiah also suffice for this. And it's in a later chapter. And it says, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I am paving ways in the wilderness. I am springing rivers in the desert. And it truly shows that while we may not perceive what the Lord is doing at that moment, that in His abundance, in His mercy, in His grace, no matter the situation, God is springing forth wells of life and making a way in the most difficult of circumstances and seasons. So truly it is a blessing to really render and wholeheartedly believe that God is a God who longs for us to not simply submit to him for the sake of submitting to him, but to truly grasp and comprehend and taste the beauty of who he is, by not building our life upon our desires and our ability to keep a promise, but more importantly to build our lives upon his promise, his word, so that we may see the miraculous, the beautiful, and the peace that is found only in him. Thank you all for your time, and have a wonderful day. God bless.